Welcome to Secrets of a Seven-Figure Coach, the podcast for coaches, consultants, and creative entrepreneurs who want to hit between $100K and $1 million in annual revenue. I'm Beck Keane, your host and business mentor. On this podcast, I'm sharing the mindset, strategy, and energetics required to create a multi-six-figure business and beyond. Before becoming a coach, I grew 3 successful businesses. I'm an award-winning business owner who built and exited $1 million consulting firm and an industry-leading app that won awards back in 2016. And that all happened before I started my own coaching business, which has since generated over $2 million in lifetime revenue in part-time hours. I'm taking you behind the scenes from my very first 10K month to my very first 100K month. I'll also bring in coaches and consultants who have scaled their own coaching businesses so you can learn real-world tools and strategies from others who have walked the path. If you are a coach, consultant, or creative entrepreneur looking to 2 to 4x your revenue while also having an incredibly rich personal life, this podcast is for you. Welcome, everybody. Today, I have the beautiful Stephanie Dodier on the podcast. We are going to be doing a business style coaching session, a little bit of an audit. Welcome to the podcast, Stephanie.
I'm so excited. Can I say I'm your first guest?
Yes.
Can I own that title? I'm so excited to be your first guest.
Can we have a moment for the first guest?
I am.
To be honest, when I thought about actually even just rewinding, before I thought about this podcast and I had a start date and any of that, I messaged you on Instagram after seeing some of your reels. And I was like, I would want her on my podcast because of how she explains these topics around, women and bodies and all of that. So even before the podcast was a thing, I was like, I would want you on my podcast. And here we are.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we will need to do another episode where I can actually interview you about, the work you're really doing with people, because it matters so much. And every time I see your stuff on social media, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I had an epiphany yesterday about the link between visibility in business and body image. That's for another podcast.
Okay. I'm going to make a note of that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
On an upcoming podcast together. So anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So happy to have you. Okay, so tell me a little bit about, I'm familiar with you because we work together inside the Magnetic Collective, my group program, but tell me a little bit about where you are right now in your business and where you would like to see yourself go over the next 6 to 12 months.
So I'm a 10-year-old nutritionist. I did 3 years of clinical practice, and it's been 7 years now leaving my title and going coaching online. So I'm an online coach in the nutrition world. And my brand is It's Beyond the Food. So I never talk about nutrition. I talk about why we choose to eat. And I talk about all the reason women are socialized to control food, which creates problem and behavioral issue in food. So I went from serving the average woman to serving professional wanting to learn how to do this work. So I'm kind of an OG in my field where I left traditional nutrition to do behavioral nutrition, and many professionals want to do the same thing. So over the last 4.5 years, my business has evolved to serving the average woman in her food and body issue, to continue doing that, and then serving professional, where now I have a certification where I teach my methodology, It's Beyond the Food, to professional to develop their own business with that. So my business is doing well. I'm in the multiple 6-figure business, but I'm serving 2 customers. That's primarily where my brain thinks there's an issue, is I have 2 customers. And it's almost like I have to do everything doubled. So I have to, right now I'm teaching a program on business. And so my brain wants to say, how can I talk about this with the regular woman? And how can I talk about the same thing for professional? So I'm like, it's either I have to only focus on one business or find a new way to think about my business to make it less overwhelming for me.
Okay.
This is where
And
I am in my business.
okay, and it's really interesting because that sort of 200K mark in business is where we start to feel the overwhelm because we've grown to this point and it's like there's a Y in front of us and now we need to split. Well, often we need to split or we need to do like a reorganization of our offers.
Exactly. So this is where I'm at. Like, I'm not at a place where I need to learn how to talk to people, how to do a podcast. Like, I know all the technical stuff. It's more about the direction of the company and where we're going. Is it just the way I think, or it's an actual reorganization?
Okay. So if you were to fast forward 6 to 12 months from now, what would be ideal world? Like, what's the vision? Where would you like to see yourself?
I would like to focus my time as the leader of the organization, training professional, and offering them a place to get started in serving customer. So I have a platform called Undiet Your Life, which serves regular women. I'd like this program to be, or this platform to be facilitated in a place where my certified coaches would learn how to coach other people. And women would get served by those coaches instead of me.
Okay, break that down for me a little bit, just because it's not 100% clear for me. You've got Beyond the Food, is that the brand or the certification program?
That's the brand. That's the Average Woman program. It's Beyond the
Okay.
Food.
Beyond the Food is for the average woman. Undiet Your Life is your methodology.
Yes.
And when people take your certification program right now, it is to learn the Undiet Your Life methodology. They teach it off on their own practices in their
Yes.
own businesses.
Exactly.
But you have a vision for training people who would then teach under your umbrella. Is that accurate?
Yeah. If they need to. It's like if the professional is brand new, just graduated from school and they need a place where they can get started, then this platform, It's Beyond the Food, could be the place where people could coach other women and learn how to coach. And if they choose to go on their own platform, then they create their own business.
You are focusing on training professionals in
Yeah.
your methodology. What's sort of happening in the mechanics of the business in terms of like the offers, and do you have a vision for what that would look like other than the certification?
So I'm having a lot of fun these days talking about how the way we think about our bodies, the way we think about ourselves impacts our business. And so emphasizing the business aspect and how those social conditioning impact our business is really fun right now. And I tend to go where things are fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see myself do more business training with my own approach, like to help other professional in the field.
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but not necessarily nutrition professionals, like coaches like me, or
Yeah.
a mindset coach, a money coach.
Anyone who, so first of all, I only work with women. That's the only descriptor that I have because I teach a feminist approach and how the social conditioning of women is impacting your life, including the way you show up at work. So it could be any coaches that self-identify as a woman and that are typically service-based, where they have to show up in their marketing instead of selling a water bottle.
And that's where the body stuff comes up, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in this model, that actually sounds very clear to me. What would you like to do revenue-wise? Do you have kind of numbers in mind that would feel really great?
I don't have a number. Like, I've detached myself from numbers years ago. I'm more about, can I continue to live my lifestyle? For me, it's about living my lifestyle. So being able to travel, being able to not say no when I travel to certain things. So talk about a number. As long as I can make a physical revenue in my own of like 100,000, I'm good.
Okay, so 100,000 on your own. I mean, if I was just like not even going to grab my calculator, but I would be like, okay, let's shoot for 400
Yeah, sure.
revenue wise. Does that number like mean nothing, excite you, neutral?
It's neutral. I'm totally neutral to money. So I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do that. What excites me is being able to live my life the way I want to. Now, talk about like at some point, remember we were having a conversation about going back to doing one-on-one coaching and how much resistance I had.
Yeah.
Because for me, that breaks away from being able to do my own schedule. So that's the irritant point for me. And it's a privilege. I have to, like, for those who are not familiar with social justice, like just being capable to have this conversation of saying
Yeah.
like, I don't care about money. It's a fucking privilege. So like anybody listening to this who feels like triggered by this, I totally get you, but that's where I am at my place right now. As long as I make enough money to live the life that I want, anything over and above is extra.
Okay. And it's interesting because I totally, I teach like this detachment from money
Yeah.
piece and not being attached. And also, I do get curious when people are like, I don't care at all about the money. And I find it helpful to tie the money to something. But it sounds like for you, it really is connected to time, to spaciousness, to travel,
Yeah.
to ease, to that freedom.
Yes,
So
totally.
it's not necessary to me, it's not that you don't care about the money, it's that the money is representative of the way you want to live your life.
Freedom.
Yeah.
That's the
Freedom.
privilege of money for me. In today's society, if you want to be free, you unfortunately have to have money,
Mm.
right? And that's why I acknowledge my privilege that I know I'm always going to have enough money to be free, and that's all I'm asking. That's why I'd like to have that platform where coaches can learn their skill sets. Like if my business can financially provide that to people who are beginning their career, to me, like that's the place to be.
I'm curious if you have, because you've mentioned social justice, and I know just from
Mhm.
following you that that's a really big important piece of your work. Is there scholarship models? Is
Mhm.
there like when you think of bringing in more money, is there a part of you that sees that you can be contributing more, giving back more, like funding other people, programs that?
Yeah, we already have scholarship for the certification. So we fund 60%, 2 to 3 student per cohort. Like I'm already at a place financially that I can do that.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, like for me, that's why it's extra. Anything over and above that then becomes a place where I can support coaches or people that would not be able to access my training.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so really doubling down on the training professionals, whether that's doubling revenue but increasing your top
Yeah,
line to have
sure,
more
absolutely.
cash.
More
Any
cash, less work on me, right? The more profit I can make, the like I could hire and train a copywriter. And like I know writing copy for my business is like it takes somebody who understands my philosophy. Like it's not like hiring anyone. So if I have enough revenue that I can expense out a full-time copywriter for my business and I don't have to write anything or very little, life is great.
Mm.
Like it's bonus, you see?
Okay. Okay. So this would be a really great exercise for you, just like maybe as a takeaway, is to look at your business model by way of expenses. And I know we've talked about profit first inside at the Magnetic Collective, but looking at, yes, to existing expenses, but then doing a line item of the additional things that you would do. So when I'm thinking from expansion for my own business, like we actually a year ago we did this and I was like, well, if I'm going to dream big, I'm investing 50K with a coach. I have a full-time copywriter. I've got a graphic designer on retainer, like travel, like multiple trips. We put in all like the amount of money that I would need to do the dreamy version of my business.
Yeah.
And then we reverse engineered what I would need to make revenue wise in order for those additional things to happen. And you can obviously do that in your personal life too, right? And then add
Yeah.
up the numbers to see what the increased revenue needs to be. But if you were to really map out, okay, well, what does it look like to have that copywriter that you've trained and now they're on retainer? Whatever, what are some of the other like dreamy pieces that you'd love to have?
A designer, a web designer, because right now most of my design is my own creativity. So get someone retainer long term to do all my web pages, my sales pages. So I don't have to do that anymore.
Yes.
That would be like if I take design off my plate, I take like a majority of copywriting where I just give the lead in and then the message is developed, not in my hand. That's like 10 hours a week off my list.
At least. Yeah. So it's interesting, like you have resistance around doing the one-to-one coaching because of time freedom. And if you use the same lens to this and then connecting that to the increased amount of money you'd like to make, maybe that would sort of tie that bridge together in terms of, okay, this is like motivation. Not, and I'm not saying you need motivation. I think you're already motivated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not definitely like I don't need, that's why I was able to detach money is because I did a lot of personal work through coaching and learning coaching to like detach my motivation to anything external. So I think I have resistance to go back to having a number by attaching it to something external. But if I can attach it to more freedom with very specific thing, then that fulfill my values.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You know, for people listening, we've talked about like detaching money from worthiness, detaching money from like who you are, not making money mean anything about you. What I like to think about is really the money as math, the money as pure. It's like give me a spreadsheet where everything is mapped out and I see all the numbers and I am at the place where I understand that if I've got 100K in expenses a year, whatever the number is, then my revenue could equal X.
Yeah.
And so the attachment, I'm not attached to the money, but the money has a job, the money has purpose. And then I am more connected and more inspired and motivated to go after the things. Because for me anyway, I just if I don't have that like internal drive for something, then I'm not going to do it. But if I can connect it to, oh, this is going to give me that time freedom over here, this is going to allow me to create more expansion or, you know, operate the way I want to, then I'm more likely to go do the big scary things that I need to do in order to get there.
Totally. And I think that's where profit first comes in. So I'm in the very early stages of it. So that I can see exactly like the job of the money instead
Yeah.
of just like a lump in a checking account somewhere. Like it's all, so I think this is all going to come together. Like once I establish my budget and I can say, okay, copywriter costs, designer costs, then putting a number on my revenue will be easier once like the numbers are worked out and it's not like I don't have to go back with the financial goal and have all the drama of like not reaching the number, but it's more about providing more leisure and freedom in my life.
And to me, this is why we started a business is
Yeah.
so that we can have this abundant personal life, whatever abundant means, whether that means you're financially wealthy or whether that means you have time with your kids or spaciousness in your calendar, whatever. But that's what is connected kind of back to some of those financial goals. And, you know, I'll say for everybody, like having financial goals doesn't motivate all humans
No.
in right. There's just some people that are not super motivated by money. But I do like to have these conversations to be like, well, what are you motivated by and what would sort of call you forward? And then just looking at it from a purely math equation, which I'm so happy you'll take this away as like an exercise to map out, okay, what are some of my growth activities that are going to cost me money? And then how much more do I need to bring in for that?
I just want to say, as you're talking, when I'm a coach, right? I'm a professional coach. So as you're saying that, I'm realizing that in order to detach myself from money, I put money goals aside and I put the financial structure aside to such degree where now it's in chaos and I got to restructure it. So I think I did the whole black and white thing, going from too much to not enough. Now we're going to go back to the gray in the middle, just enough.
Oh, I'm so glad you had that realization,
Yeah.
because when you said I don't care about the money, I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like I totally get the non-attachment, but when we have no structure to the money, then we don't have clarity on what we need to
Exactly.
make and create. And we tend to undercharge or we undersell. Stephanie's
I
raising.
undercharge. I totally like I'm just gonna say it for what it is. I'm launching a mastermind. It's the second round of the mastermind, and it's like it's $1,500. Like just like I know it's like it's way too low. Like it's not a master I call it a mastermind, but it's not a mastermind, but whatever. It's still too low.
Yeah.
And I know it's part because I haven't realized the whole structure, the money thing. And once I put that in black and white, I'm like, I have no choice but to charge more. It just makes no sense.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And when it's on paper, and even you can do this with, like, and for listeners, like you can do this with all your offers. I know for a fact that, for example, selling a one-to-one package versus selling a retreat, the one-to-one package, money wise, revenue wise, is obviously way higher because it doesn't have the expenses of the
Yeah.
retreat. And in my early days of coaching, I loved doing retreats so much. I loved doing VIP days and all these really like luxurious in-person things. And my Profit First coach at the time, April Stroink, who we'll have on the show at some point, she was like, you're not actually making any money here. Like what you're charging versus what you're spending is not making you money. And I was like, oh, crap. But what I have the clarity on now is, even if I do a retreat now that's less profitable than, say, another offer, I also like, I'm okay with it because I'm just doing it once or twice a year, and or because people who come to the retreat buy other things. And so it's like you get to make those choices once you have that clarity over the numbers.
Exactly. And that's what's missing for me.
Okay. I did not think we were going to be talking about numbers today, but I'm really glad we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's just a testament to, like, it's not necessarily about having the goal and making your worth attached to the goal. It's more about having clarity and having a basic structure.
Yes. It's about knowing your numbers so you can make financially empowered decisions.
Yes.
The other thing I see, and myself included, is or was this like overspending pattern in my business to make myself feel good about myself, to make myself feel worthy and enough and special. And when I could uncouple that, like my profit, or rather my expenses were like 60-70% of my business, versus now they're like 33-35% of the business, which is in line with kind of the Profit First. But once I started to see the money and see the numbers, I could make decisions like, I either need to sell more, I need to
I
sell
was
more
gonna
packages.
say, yeah. Don't reduce your expense. Grow the top line instead to reduce the rate.
Exactly. Hey, coach, are you interested in healing your relationship with money? Do you want to completely upgrade your money mindset? I have a life-changing, game-changing, transformational, audio-only program called Money Magnet, which is designed to help you heal your relationship with money, upgrade your money mindset so that you can call in more, so that you can create more money, more sales, more revenue, more abundance in your life. If you're interested in Money Magnet, we will put the link to join that program inside the show notes. It is a completely audio program and you get immediate access to the entire thing. It is set up into 20 different days. You can binge the whole thing right away if you like, or you can spend the next few weeks listening to it. This is one of my #1 best-selling programs for changing your relationship, healing your relationship with money, and I'd love to see you in there. So my first mastermind was probably whatever it was, $1,000, similar to yours right now, this time and this time only. So everyone should get into Stephanie's mastermind now, because next time it won't be like that. But then next time it was like 7,500, 10K. And then I was also able to keep an eye on, why was I spending the money Was it to grow the business or was it to fill an unmet need within
Yeah.
myself? Back to you and your business.
Yep.
Yay, we've got some connection here on growing things financially, getting clear on the numbers, having money clarity. What would you say, like what's holding you back right now when you think about where you kind of shared that where you want to go? What would you say is either like holding you back or the stumbling blocks? I mean, I think we've identified one of them, which is about the money.
Yep.
But what else comes up for you?
It's a guilt thing. So enough people that can afford a higher price. So for an example, we'll take the business mentorship called the mastermind. I know based on my life experience, I'm totally confident that I could deliver a 10K experience. And there are probably those in it right now get a 10K experience for 1500 because I'm that wise.
Yeah.
But because the people that I serve, maybe it's because I don't compel people with a higher revenue, they wouldn't be able to pay the 10K or even 5K. Do you get what I'm saying? Because their business volume is not as high. Now, is that a thought or it's a fact? This is where I am that's the block. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I would have, I love that you're a coach and you coach yourself through this
Yes.
because that would have been my question is like, do you know for sure that, and like, who's making that decision? That was my question is, are you deciding they can't afford 10K?
Well, I am. Well, I know a good chunk of them, their financial result because I'm their coach, right?
Yeah.
So I know how much financially they're making, and there's not a lot of them that are in the 6+ figure mark that could, like, once their expenses paid, afford a 10K or 5K program. So is it because the other thing as I'm always coaching myself, is it because I'm pricing so low, I'm not attracting the people that are
Yes.
making 6+ figure? Do you get what I'm saying? Because they're looking at my product, they're like, well, I won't pay 1500 for a business mastermind.
Because they have the belief that if they pay 1500 to be in a business mastermind, they're going to be with newbies
Yes.
and they want to be with peers who are going to call them forward. So this is where like I just see this whole up leveling energy happening where, and we could have this entire conversation about like projecting our money beliefs onto our clients. And like just side note, the number of times when I get on a sales call or discovery call, which I don't really do anymore, but it was my call to action. It was my CTA for all my things for a long time. Like, let's get on a call, we'll have a conversation. And I would be getting on calls with like teachers, yoga teachers, students, people who in my mind, like logically speaking, they're not making enough money to afford a 10K coaching program, right? But I just would come at it clean, clear energy, as in I'm not going to make up any stories about what they can or cannot make, even if I know the revenue, even if they said how much they make, because we don't know, like there could be a partner in the mix that's willing to lend them money. They could have access to a line of credit that they are comfortable using. And I would never push someone to go into debt. But if that's they choose to do that, I think that's okay. We don't know. And the number of times I've gotten on a call thinking there's no way this person's going to be able to afford this program. And then they're like, oh yeah, my partner's going to lend the money, or I just got an inheritance, or I'm willing to dip into my savings, or my husband just got a payout, or like there's other things that we don't know about. And so I just want to encourage like you and listeners to not place that, to not make assumptions about what someone can't and can't afford, and to really let them tell you what they choose to invest in or not. It's very much like empowering our people to be resourceful and creative. Like I know when I was a brand new coach and I wanted to work with, she was this copywriter and I just sort of idolized her at the time, to be honest, which you should never put anyone on a pedestal, but I did. And her fee was $10,000. Didn't have the cash. marched myself to the bank, got a line of credit for $10,000. Now I do realize it's a privilege. I have access to credit. And I like if I go into debt, it's not the end of the world for me. But I got that. I remember it so clearly. Like drove to the bank, got the line of credit, came home, and then there was two emails in my inbox from people who ended up each buying 5K packages.
Mm.
And I didn't need to use that line of credit. So I'm glad to her that she didn't say, "Oh, Becky's a brand new coach; she'll never be able to afford my services." So just yeah, reflections on that before we keep going.
There I think it's the social justice part of my brain that and this is something in throughout my business I have had to coach myself, like how do I make things accessible to deliver this message to more people and not forcing or encouraging people to like spend on credit or spend on things they can't afford. But at the end of the day, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing it's their choice, right? It's not me forcing them. It's like, here's the thing. You can go in the thing, or you can do this other thing here also.
Yes. Which is so the model I see for you, like especially, I mean, I think like social justice or not, I personally love having offers that are different price points so that someone can learn from me from whether they invest $37 or $100, five, 10, $20,000. But it's like, and some of the coaches I've learned from were always like, no, you have this one offer and it's high ticket and this is the
Yeah, I've been
price
through that.
and that's what you sell. And I was that model for a long time. And so I got really good at selling. But what I prefer now is just to be like, first, here's my menu. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to get major transformation in all these different places. You pick what feels good for you, what's comfortable for you. And then it's not even like it's just completely empowering them to make their own decisions based on their financial resources.
Yeah, so as I'm seeing the business component of things, it's more for me, it would be more about like having the basic program at a more affordable costs and then have another offer where it would be more higher level of conversation where we can talk about like hiring people and talk about expenses and talk about revenue. Because when you start a business, to be honest with you, when you make zero money, there's no point of talking about expense.
Or
So there's
team,
different, yeah, it's a
you don't
waste,
need to.
right? So there's different level of conversation based on how much money you make. So that could see another offer that would be more a higher level at a higher price point for higher level of conversation.
Yeah. So you have, the people who are under 100K maybe are in a group program, group calls, something like that, recorded content. But then the people who are now beyond 100K or whatever you feel like is a good number for that. And it doesn't even have to be about how much money they're earning. It's more like the level of conversations you want to be having with people. Then that's kind of the mastermind where it's more intimate, it's curated, and they're in the room, Zoom room, with people who are at or beyond their level, which like that is worth a significant investment.
As I'm saying that, as I'm seeing that, it's also the type of things we talk about. Like when you start in business, like right now, earlier today, I was talking on story about the link between visibility and body image. When you, like right now, at the level of money I make, like this is not a topic I want to be entertained on. Because that, like, in order for me to make the money I make, like I'm past the visibility and body image.
Mm,
So it's also the type of conversation we're having. Because for me, it's 50% mindset, 50% tactic. So
yeah.
that's like half and half the conversation we have around business. So it's also the kind of conversation we're having based on the product we're in. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think that's the missing link for a lot of people is they are tired of talking about certain things with certain clients, but they stay there and they don't challenge themselves to because they're like, sort of what you said, like you're speaking to this certain level of client, you want to be having upgraded conversations. So we have to be actually speaking to that person and saying, here's the types of things I talk about, here's what happens inside my containers. And then when that person lands on our social media or website or wherever, they can see themselves there, versus if we're not talking to that person and we're not having those conversations in our Zoom rooms, then of course they're not going to come into our orbit.
So that's where my challenge is right now. For me, I got like different programs
Mm-hmm.
that talk about different things. So it's always a struggle of what am I going to talk about right now? And at which level am I going to talk about it?
Yeah. So this is where I see you speaking to, I'm going to say your highest level client. That's maybe not the right way to put it, but the person who's going to be in your highest ticket containers. So speaking to that, and is that that's someone who's already in business, right?
Somebody's already in business who's into what I've realized a couple of years ago is that the level of how I talk about coaching for people who are new in the self-development space, I'm overwhelming them. Like I'm way too deep.
Yeah.
And that's how I became a coach to the coach, is because I was like way beyond all of this. So when I talk about coaching, I talk about that at a level that attracts professional, because I talk at that level without intending. It's just how I think about it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You're not willing to, well, you don't dumb down the conversation. Your
Yeah.
mind's not even hanging out there.
Yeah. And it would be really hard for me to dumb things down, because that's just not how I think about it anymore. So I naturally talk about coaching and I naturally attract professionals.
Okay. So then in that case, like to me, it actually seems really simple, is that I don't know if it's 70 or 80% of your time you're talking to that target client who may or may not be in your offers right now.
Yep.
And usually there is, like, or usually they're lurking and they're swirling around, but the messaging hasn't been there. So they're not coming in to your world. So you speak to them the majority of the time, but then you have program specific content for the different programs, and you can jump around. Like you see me do this. I talk about my mastermind for, 100K and beyond. I talk about my other program for people trying to get to 100K. And then I have specific offers, smaller offers that might be focused on money, or might be focused on sales, or might be focused on offers. And I'm just using the language related to those specific offers, but then there's this overarching message of the people that I'm serving.
Yeah. I think it's a fear of leaving behind the client that came up with me through those things, like the regular woman.
Yeah.
I think that's a fear of that. And it's the guilt of like the social justice and serving all the people and all of that. But I think that's the break I need to make, and not trying to create content, program, offer for them and leave that to the people I train, and then focus myself to up level the conversation to naturally attract
Yes.
people at that next level.
Yes, 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 yes. This is like you just gave yourself the best advice. And it makes so much sense that, and this is like just an interesting conversation to be having, that when we go to the next level, we're often more focused on the people that we're leaving behind and the people who were with us from the beginning. Like I think of them in my world as the OGs, like the people who were there when I was charging $100 an hour, where I legitimately had no clue what I was doing. And they invested and they came and they continued to come. So there's the people will be attached to leaving those people behind, versus thinking about like this as this amazing, you served these people for so long and you did such a great job, and now it's time for you to serve at a higher level, at a higher capacity. And when you do that, you speak to all the people who are out there who really need you. But here's what I know, is that the people who you think you're leaving behind, there's actually going to be some of them that are going to be so called forward by your actions, and they're going to be like, whoa, look at her moving. And they're actually going to come with you.
True. Absolutely.
But we do need to be more focused on who we're becoming and who we're wanting to attract than we are about who we're leaving behind.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's the pull I've been feeling is like trying to talk to too many people. And by doing so, I'm not talking to anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not talking to the people you really want to be talking to.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we covered a lot of ground. Are there some takeaways or action steps that you would feel good like implementing from here, committing?
So for me, it's continuing on the implementation of profit first. And then once we've got the basic in place, is doing the additional expense, like how much would it cost for a copywriter and a web designer on contract, so I can then think about like creating product that will fulfill that need. That would be one thing. I think when I like really make the decision to talk to the people I want to talk to, then the creation of product that fit those people will come together.
Yes, I agree. And I also think a secondary benefit is going to happen. And it's that, because I've seen this for myself, is some of those products that will serve the people that you've been historically serving, those things will get bundled up. You'll have these mini trainings, you'll have all these passive offers that you can be selling on the side if you like, and or through your network of coaches that, you know, are kind of under your umbrella.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of letting go. Like letting go of the program that I've been doing for 6 years and making it evergreen so I no longer have to spend time in it. Like making it more accessible at a lower price and losing the time that I have to spend in it. So it's just evergreen
Yeah,
so that it just works and serves people at a very affordable price. So I can then focus on this other group of people.
I love that. And then you'll have this baseline revenue from your more passive offers that aren't requiring you to take time to deliver them. And then you'll have this new stream of revenue from these new people, and your revenue will start to stack and really build.
And from a coaching standpoint, my brain won't be confused all the time who I'm speaking to and which channel I need to speak to all of. I can just speak.
Yes.
I can just say whatever's on my mind.
And the other thing we didn't talk about, but you know, I see you on stages and I see you like speaking in front of
Oh yeah.
groups and talking to people and sharing this with the masses. So you're moving from that like smaller model to the one to many, one to the world. And that requires a letting go process and, you know, like deep inner kind of trust that you can take yourself to this next place.
Yeah, and so it's funny enough, for me it's not the trust because I'm already like doing stages. Here's the problem. Is the time to pitch myself on stages.
Mm,
That's where I sabotage myself by keeping myself busy in the weeds.
yeah.
Like it's not like give me a stage, I'll rock it, but I sabotage myself by like keeping in the weeds of the small things so I don't have time to pitch and network to do the
Yeah.
big things.
Got it. Yeah. And that's such a common sabotage is like doing the busy work to
Yes.
avoid the things that are really going to move the needle forward.
Yeah, and it's not only need the mover, it's going to move the needle forward for me, but for the cause as well. Like
Yes.
moving women out of diet culture, we need to have big messages out there to combat diet culture, and I'm capable of doing that. But I need the time to focus on those big moves.
And so to circle that back to your first action point is building in some support within your business will free you up, and having passive offers will also be able to let you take your foot off the gas delivery. You'll have more time, you'll have more space for creation, and whether it's you pitching or someone on your team pitching
Voilà.
to be on stages, like there you go. And
Yeah, I'm at that point where like I really have to increase my revenue to be able to have other expenses to go to the next level, like buy that services to pitch myself or get the entry into the networking. The other thing that would be big for me is to go into networking events, like to connect with other women to get my message out there. But it's again, it's a game of time and expenses.
yeah,
So like I just sold myself on more revenue from that perspective to get my message out into the world to help the world.
great. more impact. And
Yes.
yeah, okay. Well, there's so many things I want to talk to you about, that are related to the work that you do, but we'll save that to
Yes.
another episode. Where can people find you if they want to follow you, if they want to listen to your podcast? Tell us all the things.
So the easiest transition for people listening to a podcast is another podcast. So the podcast is called It's Beyond the Food. And what you don't know, there's also a second podcast for professional called Undiet Your Coaching. So I have two podcasts. So transition to the world of podcasts. So Google my name in Apple search bar, or my name, Stephanie Dodier, Dodier, will get you all the places on the internet where I am, including my website.
And we will link everything in the show notes so people can just click things. I'm just such a super fan of your work. So thank you for coming on the show today. I just can't wait to see you continue to thrive and rise in your work.
Thank you for this opportunity and this coaching.
Bye, everyone.